Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, I have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is house hacking. House hacking refers to different ways you can generate income from your home. It's a powerful way to build wealth. Anyone can do it. An example of a house hack is to buy a 4-bedroom home and rent out 3 rooms while living in the 4th. The rent you collect from your roommates should be plenty to cover your mortgage and then some. If you buy a duplex and live in one unit while renting out the other, that is also a house hack. If you have a huge backyard, build an additional dwelling unit, also known as an ADU, and start generating some cash. It may not be enough to cover your entire mortgage, but will definitely help to lower some monthly bills. Lastly, if you want to generate even more income, instead of long-term renters, try renting it out by the night. Short-term rental hosts typically make 2 to 3 times as much as their long-term counterparts. So if you are looking for a way to get into real estate investing, try house hacking. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Mara Ballard. Mara is a forensic accountant and certified fraud examiner. She is also a certified management accountant offering fractional chief financial officer, CFO, services to the real estate investor community. If that wasn't enough, Mara is a trustee and can manage any trust you create for generational wealth purposes. I don't know what half of that means, so I'm excited to have her on the show. Welcome, Mara.
Hi, Jen, and thank you for having me on your show.
Yay! I have met you twice now. We've hung out, and I met you down in Columbia, South Carolina. Is that where you're from?
Not originally. I'm originally from the Pacific Northwest, but I got here probably about 33 years ago.
And in Columbia, though?
Home. Yep. I'm in Columbia, and I'm excited to be here.
Nice. And you work with real estate investors all the time. So you have to explain, but you don't flip houses, correct?
No, I'm a private money lender.
Oh, all right. Good to know. But you have to first of all explain what the heck is a forensic accountant and certified fraud examiner. What does that even mean?
A forensic accountant, by definition, is simply an accountant who can testify in court. But what it really means is that we have the knowledge, tools, and skills to review financial data and determine if there has been some sort of financial crime committed. Once there's been that has been determined, we would get law enforcement involved in order to present a case to the prosecutor to take to court. And that is where the certified fraud examiner comes in. Normally, that is a law enforcement person. Well, I said to myself, why hire another person? So I went and got my certified fraud examiner license so that I would know how to handle the evidence when I first came in contact with it. No point in my screwing up evidence while I'm actually reviewing it the first time. I also learned how to interview witnesses and even the perpetrator.
Oh my goodness. So what is an example of a situation where a forensic accountant would be needed?
One of my favorite cases is one where a law firm, a long time employee in a law firm, was actually stealing money from the law firm through their trust account. in a very ingenious manner. It is one that I had never seen before. Normally, people will just simply write checks out to themselves, and that's an easy find. But this one was a case where she was actually making the checks payable to individuals, like the client themselves, and then turning them over and endorsing the checks back over to herself. And so nobody was catching that because nobody was looking at the back of the check.
Oh.
And so I think at the end we calculated she stole about $365,000 from the law firm.
Goodness, wow.
So it was a good chunk of money. And like I said, that was one of my favorite ones.
Wow, well, that is definitely cool. I bet some people get very scared when they see you walking in a room.
Yeah, I'm not always their favorite person, no.
So we are going to talk about these other two portions of what you work on. And one is called a fractional CFO, or I'm sorry, you provide fractional CFO services. And I had to go, what? What does that even mean? And you work hand in hand with several real estate investors on how to organize their money, I guess. So explain how you got involved in this. First of all, I want to know the background of how this evolved.
Well, many people know Noah and Christy Harris. Somewhere
Yes.
back in 2015, I met Noah and Christy and became part of the real estate investor community. And I've actually been part of the training programs over the years, and I've actually learned how to flip houses and learned how to wholesale houses and learned all of the systems and things that people use to do those kind of activities. I was just very focused on my forensic accounting career, and so I never had the time to actually flip a house. So I wanted to be involved in a different way, and so that's how I got into private lending. But I am uniquely set to help people in this community because I do have all of that background and training. What is a fractional CFO? Well, that's a individual who has CFO experience and can help organization with their financial needs on a part-time basis. So I would help you, I would help Noah, I would help John, and I would help Sue. But I would not necessarily be full-time for any one of you. But what am I really? I am a strategist. I'm an accountability partner. My purpose is to understand your business, both from a strategic and financial standpoint, and to help your business grow and become more profitable.
I love that. And there's such a need for it when we get into this industry. And just like you said, you go through the education, you learn how to flip houses, you learn how to wholesale, you do all that. But organizing money is not really taught. So I like how you call it being an accountability partner. So give me a couple examples of stuff that you help a real estate investor get organized.
Well, my very first meeting with you, of course, is to find out whether or not we're a good fit for each other personality-wise. Some people just clash, for lack of a better word. But then our second meeting, I'm going to sit down with you and find out what area of real estate you're involved in and what your key metrics are and what your goals are. And once I've done that, then I'm going to go home. I'm going to take your financial information with me and your metrics, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to build out a plan of action to get you to your goals.
And what I like about you is that you did the education, you know firsthand because you've gone through everything and learned how to do these things. So you have a special little fit in there with people like us, the real estate investors, because you speak the same language as us. So I bet that is super helpful. So you become an accountability partner, and what's the next steps with that?
Well, after I've built your plan, then we get together, make sure that the plan fits and that there aren't any little last minute tweaks that need to be made. And then we meet every month to see how you're going towards those goals and if any adjustments need to be made. And if we're not meeting those metrics, then we'll brainstorm together as a team to figure out how to get to those goals and how to make those metrics, how to get to those metrics that we've set for ourselves.
Okay. And what's an example of a goal?
For instance, maybe next year you want to have 16 rental houses.
Okay.
And so we have to decide what do we have to implement now to get to those 16 rental houses? Maybe now you only have 4.
Okay.
So you have to add 12. And what kind of cash flow are we going to have to get to 12, get those 12 more houses? What kind of marketing are you going to have? And of course, the old adage is, you have to have how many letters have to go out to get how many offers on the table, to get how many actual contracts on the table to buy a house. And that's even in the rental market as well as just for flips. So finding a reasonable rental unit in this market right now is extremely difficult.
Oh, it is. Absolutely. And a lot of these rentals are turning into short-term rentals. So it's hard for some people to even find rentals because a lot of the landlords, myself included, are switching things over to these short-term rentals. So yeah, fully understood. So it's basically you're chunking down the goals and breaking it out. This is, step by step, what you need to do to achieve these goals.
Exactly.
But with a financial twist to it.
Right.
Perfect.
So we look at the whole pie and break it down into manageable chunks.
I love pie. I want to eat the whole pie. All right. What's that?
We don't let you have the whole pie. You gotta have it in chunks.
So the next part we're going to talk about, Vance and I, at the beginning of this year, we finally created our trust. And it was exhausting to do it and think of everybody in my life who wants what, who's doing this. But for real estate investors, and we've been doing this for 5 years, I can't believe we waited 5 years to do this, because when going through the process, everything's unprotected right now. If Vance and I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, our assets would be all over the place and our current projects. So all of that has to be decided. So tell me exactly what it means for you to be a trustee for trusts.
As a trustee, I manage the assets that have been put inside of a trust. Think of a trust almost as like another corporation, except for that a trust holds personal assets. And a trust itself can actually hold a corporation. So I can actually manage a corporation that's inside of a trust. But it can have houses, cars, boats, cash, insurance policies, whatever you want to protect from any kind of liability, you can put into a trust.
So how does it protect?
It makes it difficult for somebody to access those assets because they're not in your name anymore.
Oh.
They're in the name of the trust.
Because one of the things our attorney advised us to do, we're renovating the house next door and we're going to eventually move into it if we can ever get the damn project done. And he said, when you go to refinance it, do it in the trust, put the house in the trust, and then move our vehicles over there and all of that. And that's just for an added layer of protection. And I get to decide who receives the assets in our trust, correct?
Initially in the trust, you or Vance would be the trustee. But upon your passing, or if you become incapacitated and can't make decisions anymore, it's always best to also name a successor trustee.
Okay, what is that?
And that is somebody who just steps in as the trustee. But always name somebody that you want, a trusted individual that you want to have managing those assets for you.
So I picked a much younger cousin because my sister's older. And so that's why I went with someone younger who would probably outlive me to make sure to do it. So is that a good way to judge that? Or what do you think? Because I don't have any children of my own.
In some cases, that's great.
Okay.
It depends on the financial acuity of that individual and the assets that are in the trust. If you're looking for the trust assets to benefit somebody or other people, that person just needs to know how to administer that trust, and those provisions should be spelled out in the trust itself. But for instance, if you have a company in the trust that person is going to have to manage and run, then you're going to need to have somebody as a successor trustee who knows how to manage a company.
Okay. Which she probably doesn't. So this is excellent information. And I trust her completely to divvy it up. I have several nieces that are getting all my jewelry. So they, I had to put those type of things in there. So it was like, oh my gosh, it was exhausting to do this. So you would be that person for others to help manage that business?
Exactly.
Okay. And what's the difference between an individual trustee and a corporate trustee?
A corporate trustee is generally a bank. South Carolina has only one other corporate trustee that is not a bank. But generally it's a bank. You can assign Bank America, they have a trustee department, and they will handle your trust for you, but you're not going to get personalized service from them. They're just literally take your bills and pay them.
And that's a bank being the trustee.
Right.
So you had mentioned you had a story about a situation where there was a bank who was a trustee for a minor. Can you just put this into a little bit more perspective so it's easier to understand?
Yeah, there was a fairly large bank that doesn't exist anymore. It's been bought out several times now. But it was a corporate trustee for a minor who was made a quadriplegic at birth by a doctor. And based on a lawsuit, she got an extremely large amount of money, which was placed in trust for her. And the mother and stepfather kept getting medical devices and learning and education tools for this child who was a quadriplegic. And it didn't make any sense to me when I was looking at the kinds of things she was getting. She got 2 or 3 laptops, and they got a $20,000 swimming pool put into the backyard.
Wow.
Or all of this was approved by her neurologist, and all the bills went to the bank. The bank struck a check for all of it, but they never went out to the property to see what was going on, and they never visited the minor child to see that she was getting the educational things that they were writing checks for. And over the years, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 years, they went through the entire trust fund, the mother and father. And when it was all said and done, it turned out the pool was a little kiddie pool from Walmart, $20 or $30 variety, not a $20,000 pool.
Oh my gosh.
It turned out that mom and stepdad were leading a very lavish lifestyle. And at the end, when the trust was actually depleted, the stepfather took the young quadriplegic to, it was sort of a day camp for special needs children. And he left town, and that coincidentally, that very same morning, the house caught fire, and I was in the house, and she was killed in the fire.
Oh my gosh.
And that is how all of this sort of came to light, is that the remaining sister who had been at school that day contacted our law firm and was like, what happened to all the money in the trust? And that's when we got to looking at it and to seeing what had happened to all of it. And not one time did anybody from the corporate offices of that bank or the trust offices at that bank ever go out to see and check on the minor child or to see how that money was being spent. They just kept stroking checks.
Oh my goodness.
Whether the difference between a corporate trust advisor is and somebody like me who will actually get out of their chair and go check on the property, check on the person, check on the beneficiaries, make sure everything's going okay, and make sure the money's being used what it's intended to be for.
That is horrible. And so it brings up a question. So the child became a quadriplegic due to an error from a doctor when she was an infant. And so this money was put into a trust. So what is that? Like, she can't touch it till she's 18, or she just couldn't because she was disabled? Why did the mother and stepfather have access to her trust?
Oftentimes the court will put damages from a lawsuit in a trust, where they will assign somebody, not the parents, to manage the trust. But the parents can access the money for the child's needs, and that's what the money is supposed to be there for, is to for whatever the child needs. Generally, it's for medical needs.
Okay.
You know, if the child goes to the doctor and the doctor bill needs to be paid, that's what's supposed to happen.
So is the minor child not allowed to touch it till they're 18?
Generally.
Okay.
At 18 or 21,
Okay.
the trust document can actually specify. I have a trust document right now that says they can't get at it till they're 32. That's just whatever mom and dad say.
Understood. Wow. Interesting. So basically, bottom line here, it's very important to get a trust to protect all your assets, etc. So what is the best way for someone, the listeners right now, to start a trust or to find out more information on it?
I would contact a probate attorney. There are lots of them around. One of the things you can do is look up Martindale Hubble and search for a probate attorney in your area. If you don't know one specifically, we did have one come, Angela Kirby. She came to the REI event.
Yep.
Re-up event. She's very good. She's a former probate judge herself, but she would be able to write up a trust. But meet with a probate attorney of your choice and get that process started.
And typically, how much is it to start a trust?
That's going to depend on the attorney and what their fees are. Corporate attorneys, who work for these really big firms are going to charge a lot more than your solo attorneys. But I would say anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's about what we paid. And I feel so much better. I have a massive binder in a bag with, another binder, and so all of that documentation is there, but they also keep a copy of it there at the office. And we know our attorney pretty well. He's done all of our LLCs, etc. So I feel much better and much more protected about everything. And it's just that extra layer for people to not be able to get to my funds because they're protected by the trust. So this is all great information, Mara. You heard me talk about house hacking, and I did a badassery bestowment. So do you have a badassery bestowment you can share with the audience?
Probably my best piece of advice is that, and this goes along with my trust services, is that when you're preparing your wills and your trusts, just remember that, or just assume that your heirs and family members are going to fight over every last belonging that you ever had. The only one who wins in a situation like that is the lawyers. Their fees just ramp up and up and up. So make sure your will and your trust state your wishes explicitly. Tell them that the pink hat goes to Julie and the green hat goes to Sarah, because otherwise they're going to fight over it and it's going to make life miserable.
Wow. Another reason why I don't have children. Well, Mara, this has been very educational. I appreciate you sharing this and bringing your brains. And I love how you have the twist on it with the real estate investor in mind. And that's, so hard sometimes in different industries. People don't really understand the other industry. So having you as that connector between the two is just fantastic. So thank you for sharing that. And the second half of the podcast is what makes you a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS. And the first letter is B for book. So what is a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Probably the Edith Hamilton book on mythology. It was a huge influence on me and started a long passion for mythology of all types in the world, not just Greek, but I've actually even studied mythology all the way back to Sumer, which is where before Mesopotamia, where the writing actually first began, and pretty much our history as humans first began.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
So, but right now I'm also reading a book called The Second Brain, or Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. And that is making a huge impact on my life as well. Being able to take all the information that I get on a daily basis and organize it is incredible.
I think I need a book like that.
It is just, I would encourage people to read that book.
Very good. All right. The first A in badass is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
What is the best piece of advice I have ever received? Just keep doing the right thing all the time. And I remember, one of the things that my parents always told me was, um, always stretch for the best you can be. When I was a young girl, I wanted to be a nurse, and they looked at me and said, "Why be a nurse when you can be a doctor?"
That's
Now,
true.
this is, early 60s when feminism was was getting going, and so they were trying to break that glass ceiling for me. But that was a big thing for me, was, keep stretching, keep going, keep being the best person you can be.
I think that's so important too. And plus, when there's negativity around you, if someone's trying to drag you down to be that stronger person and really stand strong and do what's right. I love that. Excellent. All right. The D in badass is drive. What drives you to be successful?
Um, Probably, well, again, the way I was taught, to be the best you can be. I also have a special needs child, and so that everything I do really is to ensure her capability and ability to survive after I'm gone. Because I'm terrified
Mhm.
that when I'm gone, there will be nothing there to support her. And I don't want to see her living under a bridge, quite frankly.
Right. Well,
um, and I know that's not a laughing matter, but I have this image in my mind, that, the entire social network in this country will fall apart, and she will be left with nothing. And it just absolutely terrifies me.
well, I think with your experience in being a trustee for trust, I think she's going to be in very, very good hands.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So, what is a goal you are currently working on?
I am actually working on something that is totally, well, originally I thought it was totally unrelated to real estate, but then I caught wind of something and I really like it. I am becoming blockchain certified and certified as a cryptocurrency auditor. Real estate is coming to the blockchain. And so you need to get ready for that.
I
And
have heard this like over and over and over again. So, can you tell us just a brief little synopsis of how real estate is moving to this blockchain?
not only are people buying and selling real estate with cryptocurrency, which is what most people would think about, but the entire contract is being done on the blockchain rather than on paper, as you would expect. Normally you would see a real estate contract, maybe you sign it digitally with one of these digital signature services and that. In this case, the entire contract is programmed on the blockchain, and money doesn't transfer until the contract is complied with on all terms. And all of it is stored on the blockchain. The title work is all on the blockchain. Everything about it is completely on the blockchain and stays there as a permanent record. And people will be able to find it forever right there. And eventually, as everything moves towards the blockchain, it will all be there and immediately searchable. There won't be going down to the courthouse and paying somebody to do a title search. It'll all be right there.
I find that really interesting. And I also hear doing real estate on the blockchain is like lightning speed too, because you
Yeah.
don't have to wait for the title search to come back to do all this stuff to get so and so to sign. And what, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I have heard that the blockchain consider it something of a type of a ledger, that it just records everything. And so having access to all that information is what speeds up the process. Am I correct?
Yes, it's a distributed ledger, meaning that hundreds, thousands of people have a copy of this ledger, which
Okay.
makes it unique. and safe and theoretically non-corruptible. Is because everybody has to agree on this transaction before it can be added to the ledger.
Very interesting. Super smart of you to get involved in that, because that is trending everywhere. You know, I hear ups and downs about cryptocurrency, but the blockchain, I think, is going to be here to definitely stay. So very cool. Look at you, Mara. I'm very impressed. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Well, the first one is OneNote. That is where I am learning to be my second brain. OneNote has become my second brain. That's my organizational tool. QuickBooks, of course, is where all of the billing and things of that nature comes from. QuickBooks Time for time management. Outlook. Good Lord, who can live without an email system? It does email calendars, my task codes, all of that. But best of all, I live and die by Excel. Excel is my go-to for everything. It's what I use to help people and build up my financial plans for people.
So, you know, I'm married to an accountant. You know, Vance is an accountant by trade.
I did not know that.
So I live with an Excel junkie. I'm telling you, he's the same way. He loves his Excel sheets and files and all that. So that is no surprise to me to hear you say that. All right. To wrap this up, the final S in badass is success. What does success mean to you?
Freedom from worry and concern for my daughter. Freedom for time. To spend time with my daughter, and freedom to travel, but essentially just the one word, freedom.
So very important. And Mara, it has been a pleasure having you on the show. What is the best way for the listeners to find you?
Right now, I'm on Facebook, just Mara Ballard. I'm the one in Lexington, South Carolina. I'm still working on my website and the Facebook. I don't have a Facebook page yet for my business. I know I'm bad. I should be bad. I can also be found. My real estate business is Trusted Property Solutions. It does have a web page and it also has a Facebook page.
Well,
so that one you can find me there as well.
And if people have questions about starting a trustee, you really only are in South Carolina, correct?
I am only in South Carolina.
All right, but can you guide listeners to find a good person to help them set up a trust?
Yes,
okay.
I'm happy to help find you a lawyer.
And can you help people all over the country with the whole fractional CFO services?
If they're willing to meet by Zoom.
I was going to say, yes, definitely. Everything's virtual these days. So that does not keep you, caged in South Carolina. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so very much. I have learned a lot and I appreciate it. And that is all. We will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.